Okay, everybody, here is video going over informative speaking, chapter 16 of your text as promised. I'm going to try to be brief. You obviously have the reading material to go over, but I'm going to highlight some things that I find particularly interesting and relevant, and I might even kind of cue you in on what's coming on the quiz so you get the total value of watching this video. So, we start on chapter 16, starts on page 343 in your text. We're going to talk about some of the characteristics of effective informative speaking. So they really give us 5 things to be thinking about when we want to pull together our speech topics and just put together an interesting informative speech. I want you to be thinking about what it is that we're going over today and thinking about what you're learning from chapter 16 and what you've learned from chapters 11, 12, and 13 presentations from your peers about, ways in which you can construct a really effective informative speech for Year of Japan or Year of fill in the blank, right? So for your informative speech assignment. So, I'm going to have I'm on page 344. So there are 5 things. 1, intellectually stimulating. Here they say information that is new to the audience members. It piques their interest. Notice how they spell piques. Everybody spells it wrong. P-I-Q-U-E-S. So now you know how to spell piques. But that's the idea, right? How can you make information be intellectually stimulating, where we're getting the wheels turning, and it's not just you're preaching to the choir, or you're not just finding a topic that we're also familiar with, that we're not here to learn anything new. What's the point of our attendance? So you really want to think about bringing something of value to an audience of your peers. You know what's intellectually stimulating because you are very homogenous, right? You look pretty much like your peers, maybe not in certain ways, but by your age demographic, the fact that you're all students at Reinhardt, the fact that we're all in this community together, that you're in this class at your scheduled time together. There's a lot of things you have in common, so you kind of get each other's world. So what's going to keep that audience interested? If your audience is familiar with your topic, you need to identify a new insight. So I'm not saying go off and find a topic that is completely foreign, but you want to find a new spin on it. Okay, so you want to begin by asking yourself, what things about my topic do listeners probably not know? It seems obvious, but you start with yourself. What did I not know? So if you, as you're doing your research and you come across some nuggets of discovery and you're enlightened, well, there's a very good chance that there are members in your community who will also be, they'll get that aha moment from what it is that you found. So that could be something to put a good, a way to spin your topic. It talks about going deep and wide. So depth, answer the question by considering depth and breadth. So depth has to do with going into more detail than what they might know. So maybe they knew generally about the topic, but not very thoroughly. Great place for an informative speech to go deep on that issue or on that topic. Or you can go wide. That's called breadth. The breadth of it, you might find different ways in which you can connect things around that topic area. So breadth looks at how your topic relates to other associated topics. Trace considered breadth when he informed his audience about type 1 diabetes. He discussed not only the physical and emotional effects of the disease on the diabetic person, but also the emotional and relational effects on family and friends, as well as financial implications to society. So his topic is anchored in type 1 diabetes, and he could just give you the whole thing on glucose and blood sugar and insulin, and he can go deep on what that's all about, or he can go wide and he can start to talk about it in a way that, it all ladders back to the idea of type 1 diabetes or whatever particular spin is on your theses, right? But it all should connect back independently. So in this case, by independently, it doesn't have to ladder through point one. But let's just say your topic is type 1 diabetes. Well, what about it? What about it? What about it? All three what about it's go back to that thesis, right? And it's giving us either greater depth on the topic or some breadth. The second characteristic of a very effective, informative speech is to make it relevant. Don't assume your listeners will recognize how the information is relevant to them. Remember to incorporate listener relevance links. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit throughout the speech. So just keep reminding us why we care. It's just as simple as that. Creative. This is my world. So as I've said before, my whole career has been really built in the creative field. I'm a strategic planner in advertising communications, but I work with creative people. So I come up with the strategy, and then I brief the creatives, and they come up with commercials and campaigns and this kind of thing. So I know this world really well, and I know what it takes to be creative. I don't consider myself a creative. I consider myself a creative person, but not a creative. So let me explain as we go into this. To be creative, is using information in a way that yields innovative ideas and insights. In that regard, I'm a creative. To be creative is to create something new. So if I'm going to repurpose what I see and what I've learned and not make new connections with that data, I haven't made anything. I haven't created anything. So you're looking to be creative by that definition. That's something you want to look at in your thinking. So for example, when I work with creative teams, I know what territory they need to be in. I'll tell them who the consumer is and what the insight is, and what the competition looks like and where we need to position ourselves. And this is the thing you need to say. I'll tell the teams, this is the thing you need to get across to consumers. That's just going to, expand their world. And I inspire the teams to come up with ideas. Now, the ideas take time, believe me. I know what they need to do, but to come up with something new, like truly fresh and original and inspiring and interesting to an audience, give them a minute. We do it to creatives all the time in advertising. We're like, okay, and that's due Monday. And they're like, blah, So they're working with a blank slate of paper, as are you. You are my creatives right now, right? I get that. That's why I want to give you at least 2 weeks to start those wheels turning. Sort of chew on some of these ideas. The creative process takes time to mull over ideas. You're looking for something new, something inspiring, a new way to package it. So what will help you is your research. You dive into a topic, and first of all, it's messy on the front end. I promise you, let it be messy. You're going to be banging your head when you start this process going, I thought I could be done in like 2. No. This is like a 15-hour thing. Do an hour a day for the next 2 weeks. I'm not kidding. You need to put in the time, and you need to get yourself down a weird rabbit hole, and now you're lost, and I'm so terrible at this, and I can't believe they even let me in college, right? You're going to have all sorts of things that come up, and you're going to be frustrated, and if you care. If you don't care, and I get students like that too, I could tell. But if you really want to get a story together and figure out a narrative where you're not just pulling from something that's already been done, but if you want to put together your own sort of point of view, or you found something that really deepens or supports, that's good research. And your research is the thing that's going to really help you be creative. That's how I do my job. So I just dive in the deep end, and I just get lost for a while, and I'm like, this is nothing, what is this, I don't know, this is actually contradicting what I thought. That's okay. That's part of that messy front end of getting yourself to find something that, lights you up, which means you're onto something. And then you want to do a little bit more research that's just not so obvious and on the surface. Now you got an interesting path. You want to look at things from a variety of perspectives. I'm still in the creative section. If you take my advertising class, I teach it, But, that's what we do. We kind of mull over the thing. We just literally from all different angles to find the thing that's new and different. Sometimes we look at things that have been done in other categories and we borrow the strategic path. Like, oh, that's kind of interesting. What if I juxtapose my idea against... Okay, I'm giving you too much. Don't worry about it. But the idea is to just keep mulling things over, and it shouldn't have already been figured out by somebody else. Otherwise, I'll be giving a grade to that somebody else. Yes, that was a good paper that you found. Refer to it and build on it, but don't just give me the same logical argument that was laid out in that paper. Remember, I research your research, so I know how much is borrowed and how much is yours. And I'm looking for you guys and gals, and non-binary. I don't know. I want to be completely inclusive, right? I don't know. But I'm looking for everybody to, to get the wheels turning on your own critical thinking. So find something that lights you up. Maybe it's sports in Japan. If that's something you're interested in, start down that track. I'm sure you'll find something, and you can go deep, and you won't be bored to death, as you put in your 15 hours. I'm not kidding. Put the time in. And then you want to think about ways in which you can bring some of this to life. It might be perceived different in groups and cultural groups. There's some things you might find as you're looking at of whatever that, they approach a topic very differently. So you might even do a comparative. The way we look at things in the U.S., there's different ways to get at something interesting. Set regular goals to produce something. Oh, this is so good. The great NHL hockey player, Wayne Gretzky put it this way: you miss every shot you don't take. They have a picture of him on page 346. Start. Like I said, sometimes I start my theses, my idea, my first, I can go pretty quickly because I've been doing it for so long, but sometimes I'm like, okay, this is a placeholder idea. I know I'm in the right territory here. There's something interesting to me. It isn't this, but here's my placeholder sentence, my placeholder thought, my placeholder theme. And I might kick it around with some other people. You might kick it around with me, and maybe we can, tweak and tighten it down or open it up or whatever we need to do. But you know that you're in the right territory when you know that it lights you up somehow. But you got to take the shot. Take the shot. There's Pepsi came up with this. I think this was in the 90s, maybe the 80s, where they had, what the heck? Oh, it's ready, fire, aim as a strategic approach. Ready, fire, aim. What that is sometimes you fire, not ready, aim, fire. Ready, fire. So you have something, and you can say, okay, I see my arrow. Here's the bullseye. My arrow is on the bullseye. I now know with that piece of data, I need to kind of move it up to get to the center of a bullseye. Ready, fire, aim gives me something to work with. It lets me know how far off I am. So don't worry about perfection right away. Not that many of you do. Oh, I'm just ribbing you. But just when you get stuck, keep pushing through. It's something. It's something, and you start to mess around. If you take the time, you should be editing the heck out of it later. And then the last, did I say 5 things? Let's see. I had intellectually stimulating, relevant, creative, memorable. I'm on 4 things. 4 things? I thought we said 5. 5 key characteristics. 1, 2, 3, 4. Memorable. If your speech is really informative, your audience will hear a lot of new information, but will need help remembering what is the most important thing. That's your theses. Emphasizing your specific goal, your main points, and key facts are a good starting point. And then they have a chart here on figure 16.1 that summarizes several memory-enhancing techniques that you might use. And that is, he talked about all these last week. Presentation aids. I love a good presentation aid. Give me a presentation aid any day. You know, I'm just like, oh, what's in that person's hand? Fascinating. That's what an iPhone looks like. Not just for the sake of being gratuitous, not just having anything, but if it's relevant to the speech and you can kind of take us through something, I mean, not to be too proppy, it's actually kind of interesting. It holds my engagement and makes it memorable. Like, I won't go, I'll be here for an hour if I give you too many explanations, but you'll see that. Repetition. Repetition. I'm big on repetition, even not to be redundant, but to drill it in. We do this all the time in advertising. Do you guys remember You're Too Young? And as an advertiser, it drives me crazy. There was a commercial. It was called Head On. I think it was like a topical aspirin. I don't know what it was. Head On. The whole commercial for 30 seconds or 15 seconds. Head On. Apply directly to the forehead. Head On. Apply directly to the forehead. Head On. Apply. They did that for 15 solid seconds. Available at Walgreens. What? What was that? So, in terms of advertising, none of us knew what the heck they were talking about, but we remembered it. A lot of times, research companies will come back to advertising agencies and say, you know, that's an effective campaign, and that campaign tested well. Creatively devoid of any thinking. So as a creative person, it made me mental. But as a researcher, you go, yeah, but people remembered it. So there are certain metrics that, anyway, but repetition is very good. Like, so, anyway, you get the idea. Transitions to help the audience understand the relationship between the ideas, including the primary and supporting information. So here's a quote from your book. So the 3 characteristics of romantic love are, I do this all the time, and then I use the mnemonic, like my fingers. Romantic love are passion, intimacy, and commitment. Now let's consider 5 ways to keep love alive. But sometimes if I tell you there are 3 ways, and then I remind you we're on 1, now I remind you we're on point 2, now I remind, it helps, right? These are useful tricks. But now that I told you these 3, okay, so we're in the section of transitions, now let's consider 5 ways to keep love alive. So the 3 characteristics of romantic love are passion, intimacy, and commitment. Now let's consider 5 ways to keep love alive. Now I don't have to do this like every time, but you know, like, so I go, okay, you just told me those 3, but let's consider 5. It just gives me that starting place, and it moves me into something else. That's a transition, nothing fancy. Sometimes we call it links. You'll see it called a link. Just move me forward. Humor and emotional anecdotes to create an emotional memory link to important ideas. Oh yeah, maybe I'll spend some time and I'll tell a personal story when I'm on a specific topic I want you guys to, you know, let sink in. If I was just sitting here reading the book to you or reading lists of things, the 5 things you need to do: presentation aids, repetition, transition, and didn't spend any time, you're going to remember none of it. And this is going to be a waste of your time and kind of annoying. So, not that it isn't annoying now, but bear with me. Right, so humor is the best emotional, one of the best emotional persuasive devices in my opinion. And we forget, it's emotional. We laugh, we're having joy. I constantly am telling my clients that. Because a lot of clients will get scared. They're all about, you know, this campaign has to work. It has to get people to behave a certain way. Let's get really serious. And they're afraid, and that comes out in their brief to me. It's like, chill out. People are just, you know, and humor works. Humor can bring people forward and bring people into your speech. So if you're somebody who wants to take a risk with a joke, please. I would love to. I want to be a stand-up comedian someday. That might happen in my 60s when I'm ever, I take the time, because I think I'm hysterical. And then I think I would love it. I just really respect comedians. I think it's a hard job to get it right, that kind of a detail. But when I go, do I ever really try it out myself? No, not really. So there's an opportunity for someone like me, right, to say, well, let me just try my hand on it. Maybe I can make an audience laugh. And maybe your audience will be generous to you, and even if they don't think it's particularly funny, they'll at least chortle you know. Mnemonics and acronyms. An acronym, like here's the 4 C's of remembering the criteria for evaluating a diamond. Cut, clarity, carat, and color. Okay. And then I guess the fifth way to get your informative speech to be successful is to think about the learning styles of your audience. Because everybody differs in how they prefer to learn. Some are auditory, some are visual learners. Some need to actually experience it. So they call it kinesthetic learners, right? So if you're going to teach me how to ski, I don't know what you're saying. Just put me on skis, water skis or whatever, right? Because then you could have this, there are different ways in which I'll learn that information best. It probably varies by the content too, I would think. So there's 4 diverse learning styles: feeling, watching, thinking, doing. Just kind of what I said. And you can kind of appeal to all of them. You could look at bringing in vivid images. You could do this with, you don't have to show pictures. You could do this with, imagine you're on a beach. And you presence them to a situation with your words. You can do that. Bringing in examples. That's what I just did. I'm talking about advertising like I'm teaching an advertising class. But I teach advertising communications. I work in that field, right? So it's not that dissimilar. We're always just, in advertising, we're trying to motivate consumers to purchase product or behave the way we want them to behave in the world. Similarly, in effective communications and giving you speeches, you want to have people engage, stay interested, and for your persuasive arguments, which is more like advertising, get them to do something about it. Stories help, testimonials help. All right, I might be going kind of long on this video. So you can do description. Here they talk about the state of Michigan. It looks like the left hand of a mitten. Just different ways to bring things to life for people. You can describe the weight subjectively without it feeling like show and tell. In graduate school, I had to present. I was on a team that presented to Seagram's. They make the spirits, and they also had Tropicana orange juice at the time. I'm not sure if they still do, but that was our client. So we had to give it an opening or give a presentation to their core marketing team on what we felt as graduate students would be a way to bring in single white blue collar males. All the teams had different audiences that they wanted to connect with. Because I grew up with single white blue collar males, I was kind of an expert on that audience. So I was in that group, and we went to try to give a quick experience of who is this audience, what is this market opportunity, volume-wise, right? For how many people there are out there that fit this profile. And so we had this great idea. It's probably my idea. I say that because it was a total bomb. The idea was fine. The way we executed it was not so fine. Of showing and giving a demonstration on the size of the market. So we got a fishbowl. And we got a big old jug of marbles. And, presentation, we were really nervous because they were all like serious. They were just stone-faced, sitting there grading and the winning teams would get a flight to New York and present to upper management. We won. So cool. So, and we were in Chicago at the time. And so I'm like, okay, awesome. This is so it. So, we started by talking about the great setup. We ramped up, if we can win with this audience, we are talking about growing sales by the amount of, and then we just took the bucket of marbles, and we wanted to give our client an experience of cha-ching, cha-ching, almost like hearing cash registers ring, right? So and so we started to pour it in there. Someone was nervous. Was it me? I don't know. It was one of us on our team, and the fishbowl fell over. We were in a big theater. There was marbles everywhere. We're all like, oh, so anyway, acting like that's part of it, and we were just all over the place. And the client was not impressed. We recovered once we stopped chasing marbles. Talk about our credibility going up. We look like, what is this? because it was a little bit over the top. Creative people do it all the time. They actually want to disrupt you a little bit. They want to get your attention. They don't want to be so boring as to, let me show you a PowerPoint slide about our amazing breakthrough idea. Right? So you want to do something like that. You want to think about ways to make it memorable and interesting and, bring in other types of aids to help you. Not everything is PowerPoint. And you know that yourself. When are you most interested? It's not all on screens. So that's what I just kind of jumped ahead to demonstration. It's a method that explains something by showing how it's done, displaying the stages of a process, depicting how something works. It's a demo. We do this, again, all the time. They're like, yeah, okay, this diaper is better than that diaper. You throw some blue liquid on both of it. This one's leaky. Okay, I get it. You don't have to over-explain something. I see it. That demo was really useful in having me believe what it is that you're saying. Some examples of informative speeches. I'm on page 351. Our process speech. The goal of the process speech is to show or explain how something's done, made, or works. How to do it. So, how do you choose a running shoe? How do you apply for a loan? Bouldering. What is bouldering? I would be like, okay, talk to me about that. How to make it, like a compost bin. Or rope knots. What is this word? Lefse? Lefse. Again, I will be the uninformed person in your audience. I have no idea what that is. How it works, 3D movies, stem cell reproduction, solar energy. In other words, you could still, if you focus on how to do it, how to make it, how it works, you're in the territory of an informative speech. You're teaching us something. You're not trying to make us do or think anything differently. We're just learning from your information. The one thing I will say is if you do things like a demo that is like, this is how you make coffee in Cuba, and it's all about the process, it is technically totally perfect for an informative speech. It's just a little bit of a cheat on the critical thinking. So remember your rubric, right? So I can go, okay, full points there, but at some point you didn't have to pull together much of a story because there's a process. It's linear. This, then this, then this. So it's an easy layup, but it doesn't really challenge you that much. So find a way to make it interesting or bring in more critical thinking so you're just not giving us a recipe. Because that's not so hard to do. Not like it has to be hard, but it has to show some sort of critical thinking. I have no idea where I am on time. Hey, well, hang with me. If you're still here, I'm going to take you into an example of from your book on page 358. 357 gives you a sample speech plan and outline. You guys look at this. Have this book open when you start thinking through from page 357 to 360. I have, like I said, on Canvas, you will see some examples and some past, work that I thought was interesting. But there are 3 different ways in which you can use that speech planner. You can use it to inform. That speech planner will also be the same kind of tool that you use to persuade or to entertain. So the informative speech is going over year of, just giving us information about the country. Persuasive speech, you're going to come up with your own ideas on what you want to persuade us on. And entertain, you might look at that format for when you want to talk about your special occasion speech. To actually entertain/acknowledge is really where I'm going to have you focus on that special occasion speech. Acknowledge somebody in your life for 3-4 minutes so that we get an experience of who that person is. So now I'm on using this tool, the formal outline for general goal to inform. Specific goal, I want to inform my audience to understand the steps to protect themselves from online identity theft. Great. Okay, you'll see this in the speech planner outline. You see it here in your book, attention getter. So when you just start, so I'm going to start on slide 1. Here's what you do. First, to protect yourself from identity theft. What? Take this opportunity to hook us in. I can tell you this from advertising. We have about 3 seconds 3 seconds before we know the consumers are going to change the channel. Now, you don't want everything to be like, ah! And sometimes it's too much, right? Like roach commercials just do it. They have that big roach and this, get that out of here. I'm eating my lunch. You know. So you don't want to be gratuitous. But you do want to hook. You want to say something provocative. You do want to say something interesting. You want to just know you don't have a lot of time to bring your audience along with you for that long ride. They're going to go in and out with their listening, and you want to keep them in the whole 7 minutes-ish, right? So, to the book example, this person puts their audience in the space. Imagine this. You're filing your income tax return after starting your first real job after college. After completing the tedious outline forms, you hit calculate button. You're ecstatic when the online filing system says that you're due a return of a whopping $2,800. Oh, that is good. I would be like, all right, then imagine hitting file to submit your tax return, and then you get an error message. It says your tax return has already been processed. What? Someone has stolen your identity and pocketed your return. Okay. I was saying what to keep you engaged. Don't do that. Because that's a little over the top. Okay. But you got people, you want them to have that emotional, like, okay, I'm there. Oh, awesome. You want to take them on that emotional ride. And then you realized you're out of luck. Someone has already filed your tax return in your name with your identity, and they pocketed your refund. So that got my attention. Now you're going to make it relevant to your listener. So if you think it can't happen to you, think again. And then I use silence. I mean, I could be a real jerk with silence. I mean that funny in a funny way, right? But it takes some nerve to live with silence. And I look around the room and I let it sink in because it needs time. We're not just tracking with you. We haven't read what you're about to say. You know what it is. Give your audience a minute to ingest all this new information, or if it's something you really want them to be thinking about and having a concern about identity theft is kind of critical to the speech, and I need you to have that concern with me for you to go on that 5-minute journey. Give it a second to sink in. And a lot of times I see this is where students will blow it, right? They just kind of throw information and they move right on to their next point. Now fight that urge. Are you getting it? It can happen to you. Even though I'm being cheesy, it's fine. You get people to right? Now they start to see the relevance because we need that to happen to you for you to move on. And then you want to give yourself speaker credibility and listener relevance. Through my research, I discovered, look, I've been doing it this whole entire presentation. I'm like, well, when I worked in my 20-year career in advertising with the big dollars, right? I'm just saying it not to boast. I'm just saying, look, this is relevant. Trust me, I see it all the time. I'm going to bring you those examples, right? So you want to look for ways to make yourself credible on the topic. Students do this all the time, and they're genius at it. Just kind of know, I spent the last 2 solid weeks diving into the research, and this is what I came away with. All right, because you spent 2 weeks diving into research on your topic. I didn't. I'm hearing this for the first time. Already, you've established yourself as more of an authority on this topic than I am. You got to deliver the goods, but how wonderful that you can just kind of lead with something where I go, okay, I have some confidence in this person. I'd love to see what they learned. Thesis statement with the main point. So you hooked us in, you're bringing us into some relevance, we're trusting that you're credible. By the way, another way that we trust that you're credible, I'm looking at you. I see that you look prepared. You're not just floundering up there. You could be nervous. You're allowed to be nervous. You're allowed to take pauses or, get your notes together. That's fine. That's not about credibility. But you came polished, prepared. You're dressed smart. It says something about you. It says this person's ready and they have something of value that they're going to deliver to me. So I'm getting all of this by things that you're not saying, just by the way you are. Okay, so, and you're filling the screen. You're not sitting on your bed. You're not slumped over reading, right? I am not afraid. I'm right in my camera. I'm unafraid here. I'm very confident. Can you get a sense of confidence from me? I'm very confident in what I have to say. Even if I say and on, I'm quirky. By the way, I'm quirky. I've had people try to coach me to not be quirky. Then I'm stiff and terrible. So you do you. I might give you some notes as people gave me. And remember I said you need to try it on? I tried on some and then I threw it in the trash because I am me. There is a quirkiness to me. There's a little bit of a meandering to me, and that works for me. That's authentic me, and that's why that works. Okay? So I can get, if I'm distracting, if I'm authentically distracting, then I would appreciate the note. But like that's the kind of thing, you want to find your energy and be with it because you are uniquely you. And, and as long as it's moving us forward in a narrative or in the agenda, I don't care at all about how many ums you say or, that kind of thing. All right, so today let's discuss several simple steps that we could all take to prevent internet identity theft. And I'm going to show you slide 1 in the background. 4 steps, because I just said it and now I'm being reinforced with my slide. 4 steps to prevent identity theft. These 3 steps are designed to help prevent phishing, hacking, and farming. Okay, you're using big words that, like now you've got to blow out those concepts, which I'm sure they're going to do in the body. But the thesis is clear, so we're going to talk about how you can protect yourself from identity theft. All right, I get it. It's a very simple idea in advertising. No, but it's true in advertising. We do the same thing. It needs to be single-minded, focused, and just, concise. Like we could all get on board to that. Everything that follows the body after the thesis, I'm gonna take you through how you could protect yourself from identity theft. Think of what I just said. That thesis, it's like a clothesline. And everything else that follows has to hang on that clothesline. Said another way, and I do this in class all the time, where I usually jump around the class, and I'm not going to do that here, but like follow my thinking. I had a boss explain this to me once, because sometimes when I'd start, I'd have an idea, and I don't know how to organize this thing. And he said, well, think of it as if you're Spider-Man. And Spider-Man, once he sets up, okay, Spider-Man knows where he needs to go. There's that clothesline. He knows he needs to get from this building over to that building. Main point 1, that's the body of your text. He says, okay, so here's the thesis. Swings to building 1. Building 1 is an idea in and of itself. Building 1 is phishing. The first step to preventing online identity theft is protect yourself from phishing. Okay. Building 1 is phishing. He's on the phishing building, and he's going to say all the support and sub-points that we talked about last week and all the different things that is going to complete the idea and help his audience understand the merits of protecting yourself against phishing. That's one of 3 things. That was me shooting the web, flying over to building 2. Now I'm on building 2. Building 2 is about and only about protecting yourselves, preventing hacking. Now I'm on the hacking building. As I was swinging, as I was on my web, that's the link. That's the transition. Here they say, after building 1, he says, now that we all know what we can do to keep our identity safe through good email practices, let's consider how we can prevent identity theft by surfing the internet wisely. Now that we're done with building 1, let's consider what I'm about to tell you on building 2. We go into hacking. Done with hacking. Then he says, he or she, whoever this is, so now that we know how to protect our email accounts from phishing and our computers from hacking, let's focus on what we need to do to protect ourselves from the most advanced method of online identity theft. The third step in protecting ourselves from identity theft is to prevent farming, P-H-A-R-M, farm. Like what does that mean? Virtually every day we engage in online transactions. We may log on to our online banking and make sure we have enough money for dinner with friends. We may purchase a gift for someone using Amazon.com, or we may pay tuition using online payment system. Farming, so he sort of sets it up, because I don't know what this is. I've never heard it. Farming, one of the toughest methods of online identity theft to detect. So it's out there, but it's hard to find it. It's a process through which criminals hack established websites, such as Amazon.com, and reroute the website to a poser website that looks very similar and allows them to gather our personal information and transactions. It's like skimming, it sounds like. You know, if you ever, there was a right down by, if you go down 140, is that road by Reinhardt? I got my credit card, you know, I ran it, and next thing you know, like, people were buying sneakers off because you could put little skimmers if you get gas. I'd be watching for that. It sounds similar, where like all of a sudden they get your information and they can, so, I mean, farming, is that something that's relevant to this audience? Is that something you could do anything about? I don't know. But it's still good information. It still fits that topic, that theme. So it works. You know, and you're not going to belabor it. You're not going to go into corporate law or anything like that. But, you know, it's good. It's interesting. Sure. So then your conclusion. Your conclusion is, this is where we were talking last week. Don't just end. I have so many students. They start off strong. They know to start off strong, and they hit us. Pow! AGO. Attention getting opening. Amazing. They hit us through they take us Spider-Man. We're swinging through the town. We're landing on buildings. 1, 2, 3. And they're on building 3, farming. Finally, you can purchase encryption software. And then they stop. And then they look at me. And I don't say anything, because that's not the end. Why did you end on building 3? Don't end on building 3. Take it home. Remember the clincher, right? So what's it all about? Even though you just delivered all the information that we technically need to know, it's on you to end your speech. Don't end on a building. That's dangerous. Swing it home, Spider-Man. So as you can see, the internet, this is how he swings it home, is literally a goldmine for identity thieves when our personal information is not protected. Just some statement. It's kind of bringing it home for your audience. He's going to summarize the main point. Fortunately, we could take steps to protect ourselves from phishing, hacking, and farming. He's showing slide 7 here, which is the same as his first slide. He's repeating. See, this is what I mean by repetition. Here in the book, they said show slide 7. It's the same as his slide 1 that have the things that you can do. When your audience can play back the key point, head on, apply directly to the forehead, head on, that's half the win. So don't let them walk away with like, oh, they're in their heads thinking about something else, or they're still on point 2 about that hacking. How do I not So what I just told you, I'm going to tell you again what I just told you, so that I know that you leave my presentation knowing the point. You repeat it. So here they're doing it just visually on the slides. You could, and just know that's reminding you just to hit home your point. Stick the landing. You know, Spider-Man should do a spin in the air and boom, nail it. So that we're all like, whoa, that was not just the end, but that was amazing. I really learned a lot. So that clincher is where you end it. Oh, I'm not sure I like this. Wait, let me read it to you and then I'll react. According to a 2011 article in the New York Times, it is extremely difficult to prosecute online identity thieves, even though they deserve it. One thing we can do, however, is put a padlock on our gold mine so these criminals can't access them in the first place. Ta-da! Over and out, right? So he's summed up the whole idea. He's not just summing up point 3. He's got the whole thing. When I said I didn't like it, I was reacting to the first sentence. You don't want to necessarily introduce new information in your conclusion. So when it said, according to a 2001 article in the New York Times, it's extremely difficult. Now, he only said a sentence. Okay, I'll live with that. You know, I like the ending though. In other words, I would have put that in the material, in the main point about the article. It's difficult to prosecute online identity thieves, even though they deserve it. I don't know that I'd cite the article. It's just true. we know that it's difficult to cite. You know what I mean? Because now I'm thinking about research. I want to be done with research. By the time I get into my conclusion, take me home, baby. Take it all the way in, right? So don't make me think about articles. So yeah, we know it's extremely difficult to prosecute online identity thieves, even though they deserve it. One thing we can do, now you want to sell it. Sell it! That's the clincher. What can we do? How do we stick that? Well, we could padlock our gold mine so these criminals can't access them in the first place. Thank you very much. Ta-da. You're right. So that's pretty cool. I mean, and then references, you guys, a minimum, I think it's at 6. I reduced it for you guys. I made a minimum of 5, but have it be a variety of different resources, right? So sometimes, hey, maybe for this, my dad is a criminal investigator and has a real interesting perspective. Heck yeah, he could be a works cited, a personal interview with an expert, for sure. Gives you some perspective. But then also find all this other really good data. This person has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sources. Don't stop at 5 just because it's a minimum of 5. But, you know, the reason I didn't require more than 5, I think it was 6, it ends up, I don't want to have you guys throw everything in the kitchen sink in there just for the sake of meeting that. But I do dock points when you only have 2 or 3 or 4. 4, they better be good to have me not notice that it's not 5. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Hit your 5, but have them be just a variety of things. Even if some feel softer than others, they don't all have to be so hard-hitting. But as you're developing your perspective, you know, I want to know that you're grounded in the research. All right, I know I'm long. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture, and hopefully it was not an hour and a half, and I met the time. All right, guys, let me know if you have questions. We're continuing on specifically informative speech for the next couple weeks. Good luck. Get started.